He left his home in the present, and came back to find it waiting in the past. In the flicker of candlelight, every mirror showed the faces of strangers who weren't really there. Every whisper carried a name he didn't know, echoing through the halls. The house wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was alive, remembering every soul who had ever died within its walls. Now, trapped between centuries, James must uncover the house's dark secret before it remembers him too, and claims him as another one of its memories. The House of 1800, a place where time never lets you go. What do you think happens next? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night. Hey, Tere, welcome to Shadows of Tales. I'm here to help you unwind and relax tonight, and I'm really glad you chose to spend these moments with me. Before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we create here. Your support means a lot, but your comfort always comes first. Feel free to drop a comment telling me where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you right now. It is always fascinating to see our little community connecting from different corners of the world. It reminds us that even in the quietest, darkest moments, none of us are truly alone. I hope you'll give this video a chance, because I truly believe you won't find stories quite like these anywhere else. Every tale here is crafted to help you drift into the night with ease. A mix of calm, mystery, and a touch of shadow. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan or a soft lamp. Take a deep breath, let the day fade away, and let's begin our story together. Have you ever felt like you were a stranger in your own home? A place you thought you knew, suddenly becoming completely alien. For James, this wasn't just a feeling, it was a terrifying reality. After months away, he finally pulled up to his childhood home, the familiar lines of the quiet suburban street a welcome sight. But as he got closer, a cold unease settled in his stomach. The sleek, modern house he'd left behind was gone. In its place stood a relic from another time. The windows were tall and narrow, framed in dark weathered wood. The smooth asphalt driveway was now a bumpy stretch of cobblestone. A faint, flickering lantern light pulsed from the doorway, casting long, dancing shadows. This can't be right," he whispered, his breath catching in the twilight air. The only sounds were the rustle of the wind and, strangely, the distant, rhythmic clip-clop of horse hooves. Hesitantly, James pushed the heavy oak door open and stepped inside. The change was even more jarring on the inside. It felt like stepping back centuries. Dark wood paneling covered every wall, absorbing the weak light from flickering candle sconces. A grand, imposing staircase swept upwards into the shadows. From somewhere deep within the house, the faint, melancholic melody of a piano drifted down, each note hanging in the silent air like a ghost. James's eyes were drawn to a large, imposing portrait hanging in the foyer. It depicted a stern-faced man in formal 1800s attire, his eyes seeming to follow James's every move. As James reached out and his fingers brushed against the cracked canvas, an icy chill shot up his spine, a primal fear he couldn't explain. Some houses, you see, belong to the past, and some refuse to let it go. Driven by a mix of disbelief and a desperate need for answers, James took the stairs 2 at a time, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. He burst into his bedroom, hoping to find a single piece of his modern life, a single anchor to reality. But everything was gone. His laptop, his posters, his clothes, all vanished. In their place stood antique furniture, a heavy, dark wood wardrobe, a wash basin on a stand, and a brass bed frame that gleamed coldly in the candlelight. On the nightstand, where his phone charger should have been, lay a small, leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed and brittled with age. He opened it, his hands trembling. The ink was faded, the handwriting elegant but spidery. "Do not disturb the house, stranger," the first page read. "Time is its own prisoner, and those who linger may never leave." As he read those chilling words, a faint, distinct knock echoed from the hallway. James spun around, his heart pounding against his ribs. The hallway was empty. There was nothing there. But as he watched, the shadows along the walls seemed to writhe and shift, twisting into unnatural forms that defied logic. "No, this isn't real," he whispered, backing away from the door, his mind reeling. This was only the beginning. James was starting to understand that the house wasn't just frozen in the 1800s. He was trapped in its past, and whatever lived inside its walls, whatever entity held time itself prisoner, was now aware of him, and it was waiting. So, what would you do? Would you try to fight the house, to find a way back to your own time? Or would you accept your fate, becoming another ghost in its timeless halls? This is where our story truly begins. James is no longer just a visitor. He's a part of the house's history, and history, as we know, has a nasty habit of repeating itself. The stern-faced man in the portrait. Was he a previous owner? Or was he another prisoner? Just like James, the diary holds clues, cryptic warnings of the presence that walks the halls after midnight, of rooms that change their shape, and of a melody that, once heard, can never be forgotten. James's first instinct is to escape. He tries the doors, the windows, but they are all unyielding, as if sealed by an unseen force. The world outside the windows is a ghostly landscape of the past, a place he doesn't recognize and can't reach. He's completely isolated. His modern knowledge, his entire identity, is useless here. He is a stranger, an anomaly, and the house seems to be actively trying to erase him, to absorb him into its own dark narrative. Every night, the activity grows stronger. The piano music gets louder, a sorrowful tune that seems to seep from the very wood of the house. Whispers slither from the shadows, formless and indistinct, but filled with a chilling sense of longing and despair. He sees fleeting figures in the periphery of his vision, a woman, in a long dress, gliding down the staircase, a child's laughter echoing from an empty room. Are they memories? Or are they the other prisoners the diary warned him about? James starts to document his own experiences in the back of the diary, adding his story to the house's cursed legacy. He studies the portrait, trying to find a clue in the man's cold eyes. He explores the house, room by dusty room, discovering secret passages behind bookcases and locked doors that lead to nowhere. He realizes the house is a puzzle, a labyrinth of time and memory, and the only way to survive might be to solve it. But with each passing day, his own memories of the 21st century begin to fade. The face of his friends, the sound of a car, the feeling of a smartphone in his hand. It's all becoming fuzzy, like a distant dream. The house is changing him, molding him into someone who belongs in its era. He finds another entry in the diary, written in a different hand, more frantic, more desperate. It feeds on time. It reads, "It feeds on our memories. Do not let it take you. Do not forget who you are." This is the core of the conflict. It's not just the haunted house story, it's a battle for one's own identity. James must fight to hold on to his sense of self, while navigating a hostile environment that wants to consume him entirely. He realizes the man in the portrait, Elias, was the original owner who made a pact with whatever entity resides in the house, sacrificing his family's future for eternal life within its walls. The house is his prison, but also his kingdom. The figures James sees are the echoes of Elias's family, trapped forever. The piano music is his wife, eternally playing her mournful song. Now, the house needs a new prisoner to sustain itself, and it has chosen James. But James has one thing the others didn't: the diary, the collective knowledge of past victims. He learns about the house's weaknesses. It is weaker during the day. It fears fire, and it is tied to a specific object hidden somewhere within its walls. Elias's pocket watch, the very thing that ticks away the stolen moments of its prisoners' lives. The climax approaches. James decides he won't be another forgotten ghost. Using the clues from the diary, he must navigate the house's most dangerous, shifting corridors to find the hidden study where the pocket watch is kept. This is a terrifying sequence. The house throws everything it has at him. Hallways stretch into infinity, doors open into brick walls, and the ghostly figures become more aggressive, trying to stop him, to pull him into their timeless despair. He is hunted by the spectral form of Elias himself, a terrifying figure of shadow and rage. In a final, desperate confrontation in the dusty, web-covered study, as the house groans and shakes around him, James finds the pocket watch. As he holds it, time seems to stop. Elias lunges at him, a silent scream on his spectral face. James knows he has one choice. He can destroy the watch, potentially freeing everyone, but risking the collapse of reality within the house. Or he can try to master it. What will he choose? This is the ultimate test. Does he become the new master of this prison? Or does he risk everything for a chance at freedom, for himself, and for the other lost souls? The story leaves us on this precipice, making us question what we would sacrifice for our own past, and what we would do to reclaim our future. What do you think happens next? Does he smash the watch? Or does he wind it, taking control? Have you ever felt like you're not alone, even when you are? Imagine standing in a hallway, the silence so thick you can almost taste it. A knock echoes from the front door. But when you open it, there's nothing there. Just the cold night air. Then, The music upstairs, a haunting piano melody, cuts out. Complete silence. This is what happened to James. Whispering into the darkness, "Hello? Is anyone here?" He gets no reply. Only the unnerving creak of floorboards from the room above, as if someone is pacing, waiting. He has to know what's up there. Cautiously, he starts up the grand staircase, each step groaning under his weight. At the top, a soft, flickering light seeps from under the master bedroom door. A door he knows was shut just moments ago. He pushes it open. The room is a perfect time capsule from the 1800s. A brass bed, a heavy wooden wardrobe, and on the nightstand, an old leather-bound diary, lying open. As his eyes adjust, a shape materializes from the shadows. It's a woman, her form translucent, dressed in a long, flowing Victorian gown. Her eyes are dark, empty pits, but they stare right through him. James stumbles back, his heart hammering against his ribs. Who are you?" He manages to stammer. The figure tilts its head, and a chilling whisper fills the room, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "You shouldn't be here." Time does not forgive, and just like that, she dissolves into nothing, leaving behind the faint, sweet scent of old roses and a bone-deep chill that has nothing to do with the temperature. Shaken but driven by a desperate need for answers, James forces himself to explore the rest of the house. He finds the dining room set for a ghostly feast. The long table is laid with polished silverware and flickering candles. The glass is filled with water that seems to shimmer with an unnatural light. All around him, he hears things, faint whispers that tickle his ears. The sound of phantom footsteps, shadows that dance and twist in the corners of his vision. Then he sees Italiano. A man, dressed in the formal attire of the 19th century, is frozen in the middle of the room, his gaze fixed on the empty fireplace. He's as still as a statue, a silent, unmoving guest at this spectral dinner party. James's breath catches in his throat. "This can't be real," he whispers, his voice trembling. The house seems to hold its breath with him, its silence a heavy blanket of dread. He retreats to the master bedroom, drawn back to the one tangible object in this nightmare. The diary. He needs answers, and he has a feeling they're written on those yellowed pages. A picks it up, his fingers tracing the delicate, looping script. The words seem to jump out at him. The house remembers every life, every choice, every soul that crosses its threshold. Those who entered may never return to their own time. A prison of memories, a place where time itself is trapped. Just as the terrifying weight of that sentence settles on him, a sharp knock echoes from the window. James spins around, his heart leaping into his throat. Outside, on the cobblestone driveway, shrouded in the dim twilight, a horse-drawn carriage waits. It's a vision straight from another century, an impossible sight that confirms his worst fears. He isn't just visiting the past, he's trapped in it. The house is alive. It's not just a collection of bricks and mortar. It's a living, breathing entity, a prison built from shadows and forgotten time. The figures he's seen, the whispers he's heard, they aren't just ghosts. They are prisoners, who's like him, caught between life and death. As the truth dawns on him, James realizes something crucial. Survival here isn't about escaping the spirits. It's about understanding them. He has to form a strange alliance with the past. Every shadow, every whisper, every fleeting glimpse of a spectral figure could be a clue. A piece of the puzzle that explains why he was brought here and, more importantly, how he can get back. But digging up old secrets is a dangerous game. Some spirits are just lost souls, but others are angry. As if in response to his thoughts, the candle flames around him suddenly leap and dance violently. A furious wind howls through the hallway, and the entire house seems to groan, to breathe in and out around him. James clenches his fists, a new resolve hardening in his eyes. He looks into the darkness, not with fear anymore, but with determination. "I need to find out," he says to himself, his voice steady. "I need to find out why I'm here, and how to leave." His investigation has just begun, and the secrets of this house are waiting to be uncovered, no matter the cost. We're diving deep into a tale that will make you question every creak and shadow in your own home. Grab a blanket, dim the lights, and let's begin. Chapter 3. The Echoes Begin. James sat on the edge of the old brass bed, the diary resting heavy in his hands. The candlelight danced and flickered, throwing shadows across the room that seemed to have a life of their own, twisting and stretching in the corners. It was then he heard Ita's soft, almost imperceptible sound drifting from the hallway. the sound of a child crying. "Who's there?" James called out, his voice sharp with alarm. "Show yourself." But there was no answer. Only the sobbing continued, a mournful echo that seemed to seep from the very walls of the house. His heart pounded in his chest. He had to know who, or what, was making that sound. He rose from the bed and followed the sorrowful cries down the hall, his footsteps deliberate and cautious on the ancient wooden floorboards. As he reached the landing, he saw him. Huddled in the corner was the source of the sound, a small boy, pale and almost transparent, dressed in clothes from a forgotten era. The boy looked up, his eyes wide with a fear that transcended time. "Please," he whispered, his voice a fragile thread in the silence. "Don't let them take me." James froze, every muscle in his body tensing. "Take you? Who?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The ghostly child didn't answer. Instead, he lifted a trembling, translucent hand and pointed toward the parlor downstairs. James's gaze followed, and his blood ran cold. A shadow was moving along the far wall of the parlor, a shadow, darker and heavier than any cast by the moonlight, a shadow that was menacingly, undeniably alive. Some memories, you see, don't just fade away, they linger in the bones of a house, replaying themselves for eternity. And some souls Some souls never truly leave. Drawn by a force he couldn't explain, James descended the grand staircase into the parlor. The air grew thick and heavy, and the silence was replaced by an unnerving stillness. What he saw there defied all logic. Figures moved silently throughout the room, frozen in a silent tableau of the past. A woman in a long gown was arranging plates on a dinner table that wasn't there. A man in formal attire stood, staring into the cold, empty fireplace, lost in thought. Servants, holding candles that cast no light, glided down a hallway that seemed to stretch into darkness. James understood that these weren't ghosts in their traditional sense. They were echoes, moments of the past, trapped on a loop, replaying forever. They were a part of the house's memory, interacting with the environment as if they were still living beings. He watched, mesmerized and terrified, believing himself to be an invisible observer. But then, the impossible happened. One of the figures, a tall, imposing man in a dark, severe coat, slowly turned his head. His gaze, cold and empty, locked directly onto James. "No," James whispered, stumbling back a step. "He can't see me." The man took a deliberate step forward, his form wavering, and then he simply vanished into the shadows. But he left something behind. A faint, chilling echo hung in the air, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You should not be here. Time does not forgive." Shaken to his core, James retreated to the relative safety of the master bedroom. He needed answers. He snatched the diary from the bed, his hands trembling as he frantically flipped through the brittle pages, searching for any clue, any explanation for what he had just witnessed. And then, a new passage, one he hadn't seen before, seemed to leap off the page. He read the spidery script aloud. "The house preserves its past for those who linger. The living must obey its memory or be trapped forever between moments." Trapped forever. The words sent a shiver down his spine. He looked toward the window. Outside, in the oppressive darkness, the carriage he'd arrived in waited, the horses snorting impatiently, their breath visible in the cold night air. Freedom was just a few steps away. Yet, as he considered it, the house itself seemed to react. It let out a low groan, the walls creaking, the floorboards groaning as if in protest. It was as if the house was a living, breathing entity, and I didn't want him to leave. Every corner, every shadow, every whisper was alive. And James was beginning to understand a terrifying truth. The past was hungry. Just as that thought crossed his mind, a sudden, icy breeze swept through the closed room, extinguishing all but one of the candles. The remaining flame stretched unnaturally, its tip pointing directly toward the ornate, full-length mirror standing in the corner. It was a silent, insistent command. Hesitantly, James approached the mirror. His own reflection stared back at him, pale and wide. But then, for a split second, the image flickered and changed. In the glass, he no longer saw himself. He saw a man from the early 1800s, dressed in the same clothes, with the same terrified expression. It was his own face, yet not his own. This reflection, this doppelganger from another time, looked back at him, grim and pale. James staggered back, a cry catching in his throat. What? What are you?" The reflection in the mirror offered a faint, knowing, an utterly terrifying smile. It was a warning, a glimpse into a fate he couldn't yet comprehend, and as the smile faded, the air filled with a chorus of disembodied whispers, the haunting notes of a distant piano, and the relentless creaking of a house that was slowly, but surely, claiming him as its own. What does the house want from James? And can he escape before he becomes just another echo in its haunted halls? We'll find out in the next chapter. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. The house was no longer just wood and plaster. It was a living, breathing thing, and I was trespassing in its veins. Whispers, like the rustle of dry leaves, brushed against my ears, and shadows danced in the corners of my vision, stretching into grotesque shapes. A faint, flickering light drew me from the hallway, pulling me toward the parlor. The closer I got, the colder the air became, clinging to my skin like a damp shroud. Stepping into the parlor was like stepping back in time. The room was immaculate, a perfect snapshot of the 1800s. Polished mahogany furniture gleamed, and a magnificent crystal chandelier swayed overhead, though not a breath of wind stirred the air. But it was the people who stopped my heart. Figures, dressed in period clothing, were frozen mid-motion, like waxworks in a macabre museum. A man holding a brandy snifter, two women in conversation, their heads tilted just so. They were so still, so lifelike. Then, one of them moved. A woman, her back to me, was arranging silverware on a side table. The soft clink of metal on wood was the only sound. Slowly, deliberately, she turned. Her face was pale, eyes dark empty pits that seemed to hold a century of sorrow and a chilling warning. My voice was a choked whisper. I don't mean to intrude. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Instead, a disembodied voice slithered through the room, cold and ancient. You should not have returned. Panic seized me. I stumbled backward, how from away from the frozen tableau of ghosts. As I retreated, the shadows on the walls writhed and flickered, elongating into monstrous, unnatural forms. Then, a new sound cut through the suffocating silence to faint, heartbreaking sobs of a child, echoing from somewhere upstairs. It was a sound of pure terror and loss, and it pulled at something deep inside me. Needing a refuge, I fled into the library at the back of the house. It was a sanctuary of decay. Books, their titles faded into illegibility, lined the walls from floor to ceiling. In the center of the room, on a heavy oak table, a single leather-bound ledger lay open, bathed in the soft glow of a few flickering candles. I felt compelled to approach it, my fingers tracing the brittle, yellowed paper. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. All who entered this house after the turning of the century may see what was lost. They may walk with ghosts, and they may never leave the memory behind. Just as I finished reading, a sudden violent gust of air slammed the windows shut. This sounded like a gunshot in the stillness. The candle flames leaped wildly, then dimmed, casting the room in near darkness. In that fleeting moment of low light, I saw him. A figure stood in the far corner, a tall man in a dark, severe coat, his face obscured by shadow. He was staring directly at me. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Who, ... what do you want? I managed to stammer, my voice shaking. The figure didn't answer. It simply tilted its head in a slow and natural gesture, an act of cold curiosity. Then, as if made of smoke, it dissolved back into the shadows, leaving nothing behind but a palpable sense of dread. The very air in the room seemed to hum, a low vibration that felt like the house itself was breathing around me, watching me. The child's sobbing started again, closer this time, more desperate. I had to find the source. I followed the sound out of the library and down a small, narrow hallway I hadn't noticed before. It felt doubly wrong, like it shouldn't be there. At the end of the corridor, a small, translucent figure flickered into existence. It was a boy, no older than 10, his form shimmering like a heat haze. He reached a spectral hand toward me, his eyes wide with fear. Please. Please. His voice was a fragile echo. Don't let them take me. I took a hesitant step closer, my own fear warring with a surge of protectiveness. Who's taking you? I asked, my voice barely audible. The boy didn't speak. He simply lifted a trembling, transparent arm and pointed back toward the grand staircase. My eyes followed his gesture, and I saw it. A dark shape, a patch of living blackness, was moving up and down the upstairs hall. It was formless, a void in the fabric of the house, yet it radiated pure malevolence. The air grew thick and heavy, pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. Then, I felt Ita touch on my shoulder. It was cold, solid, and utterly real. Ispunaron, but there was nothing there. This house, it's alive, I whispered, the terrifying realization finally dawning. The past wasn't just replaying itself. It was actively merging with the present. I watched in stunned silence as a chair slid a few inches across the floor on its own. Candles on a nearby mantelpiece, long extinguished, flared back to life. From the parlor, the piano played a single, jarring, mournful note that hung in the air. The house was rewriting reality around me, pulling me deeper into its 19th century nightmare. Drawn by an unseen force, I glanced into a large, ornate mirror hanging in the hall. The reflection that stared back wasn't me. Not exactly. It was my face, pale and wide-eyed with terror, but the clothes were all wrong. I was wearing a hay-colored shirt and a waistcoat, attire from a bygone era. A whisper, right behind my ear, made me jump. The house chooses its guests. Choose o we sally, or remain forever. I stumbled back, my hand instinctively grabbing the diary I'd been carrying. I fumbled it open, my eyes scanning the pages frantically. They were different now. The entries I'd read before were gone. In their place was a list of names, a grim record of people who had vanished within these walls over the centuries. My blood ran cold as my eyes fell upon the last entry on the page. The ink was fresh, the handwriting eerily familiar. It was a name I knew all too well. It was my own. Last time, James found a diary that seemed to hold the key to the mysteries of this house. Now, with the book in hand, he ventures deeper into the darkness, searching for answers. Let's find out what's waiting for him. James clutched the diary so tightly his knuckles were white. Every step he took on the creaking floorboards of the main hallway was a gamble, a deliberate, tentative movement into the oppressive silence. Shadows twisted and writhed along the walls, stretching and flickering like living things, dancing in the faint moonlight that sliced through the grimy windows. From up the grand staircase, the faint, heartbreaking sob of the child echoed once more. But it wasn't alone. A new sound joined it. A chorus of whispers that slithered through the air, murmuring unintelligible warnings that felt both ancient and immediate. The sounds crawled over his skin, raising goose. He muttered to himself, his voice a strained whisper, lost in the vast, empty space. I need to understand what is happening here. He needed to make sense of the ghostly child, the shifting shadows, the overwhelming feeling of dread that permeated every inch of this mansion. The diary felt heavy in his hand, a weight of history and sorrow. He reached the entrance to the parlor, the room where he'd seen the frozen figures just moments before. But they were no longer frozen. A woman, dressed in a faded gown, was arranging a spectral dinner table. Her mouth was wide open in a silent, unending scream that tore at the very fabric of the room, yet made no sound. Nearby, a servant in livery bowed repeatedly, a gesture of deference to a master who wasn't there, his movements stiff and jerky. And then, from the darkest corner of the room, a tall man in a dark, old-fashioned coat stepped forward. He moved with an unnatural grace, his form solid one moment and smoke the next. Bath is ales. His eyes were black as coal, empty voids that seemed to drink the light from the room. As the tall man advanced, the shadows in the room converged, flowing like liquid darkness toward James. He felt a sudden, crushing pressure against his chest, as if invisible. His cold hands were pinning him in place, holding him firm. Panic flared in his throat. Get away, he struggled, his voice cracking. I don't belong here. The tall man tilted his head, a slow, deliberate movement that was deeply unsettling. And when he spoke, the voice that emerged was not his own. It was James's voice, a perfect, chilling mimicry. You belong to the house now. The word struck James like a physical blow. He stumbled back, his feet tangling in a threadbare rug, and he fell hard onto the shuddering floorboards. The walls around him seemed to breathe, the wallpaper pulsing in a slow, rhythmic beat, as if the house itself were alive and closing in. Just as the darkness threatened to swallow him whole, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Near the base of the staircase, the translucent form of the little boy reappeared, hovering just above the floor. His small face was etched with terror. Don't let them take you, the boy pleaded, his voice a faint wisp of sound. Like they took us. In that horrifying moment, James understood. The house wasn't just haunted, it was a predator. It fed on fear, on attention, on the very life force of those who it trapped their souls, forcing them to relive moments from its past, merging them into its eternal, agonizing loop. His terrified gaze darted to a large, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. His own reflection stared back, wide-eyed and pale, but he wasn't alone. Just behind his shoulder stood the spectral image of the boy, and behind the boy, pressed against the glass from the other side, were hundreds of faint, ghostly faces, their mouths open in silent screams, their eyes pleading for a release that would never come. The whispers in the room escalated, growing from a murmur to a roar of indistinguishable, overlapping voices. The floorboards began to creak and groan violently, as if the entire structure was about to collapse. Suddenly, the candles in their sconces flared up, their flames reaching impossibly high before extinguishing in rapid succession, plunging the room into a deeper, more profound darkness. The temperature dropped so fast, his breath plumed in the air. Shadows, no longer just on the walls, stretched across the floor like inky tendrils, reaching for him, grasping. Desperate, he swung the diary at them, a futile gesture. The book passed through the shadowy forms, as if they were nothing but smoke. They were untouchable, yet their presence was suffocating. "I have to get out," he gasped, his voice tight with panic. "I have to find a way out." As if financier, a new figure emerged from the hallway, a woman in a long, tattered dress, her face bone white and her eyes hollow, empty. She moved with an impossible, gliding speed, closing the distance between them in an instant. Before he could react, she reached out and snatched the diary from his grasp. The ancient book burst into flames in her hands, but these were not normal flames. They produced no heat, no light. Instead, they burned with a pure, consuming darkness that seemed to suck the very essence from the air. The pages turned to black ash and vanished. The house does not forgive intrusion. It does not release what it claims, and it remembers every soul. His only link to understanding this place was gone. Pure, instinctual terror took over. James turned and ran, scrambling for the stairs, for the front door, for any way out. But the hallway began to stretch, the distance to the staircase growing unnaturally long, as if the house itself was reshaping its corridors to trap him. He threw open a door, hoping for a path, but it led only to another room from the 1800s. Inside, more shadowy figures were frozen, mid-action, a man reading a paper, a woman staring out a window. As he watched, they began to turn, their movements subtle but deliberate, all of them slowly turning toward him. He slammed the door and turned back, looking for the boy, his only ally. But he was gone. The whispers were now a deafening, tormenting chorus, a cacophony of pleas, threats, and mournful cries all at once. "Somebody, help me!" he screamed, his voice swallowed by the noise and the sheer scale of the house. In response, the walls seemed to pulse like a giant heart. The massive chandelier overhead began to sway violently, its crystals clinking a chaotic, terrifying rhythm. And then, the entire house seemed to fall silent, a held breath before the plunge. It felt as if the mansion was inhaling, gathering its strength, preparing for its next move to claim him forever. The house is alive. It's no longer just wood and stone. It's a living, breathing entity, and I'm trapped inside its heart. The walls seemed to pulse around me, contracting and expanding with each shuddering breath. I gripped the diary, my only guide in this nightmare, and climbed the grand staircase. Every step on the warped with groans under my weight, a protest from the house itself. The shadows. They're not normal. They writhe and twist along the walls, dancing like malevolent spirits, their movements unnatural and deeply unsettling. Above me, the child's sobbing continues, a constant, heart-breaking echo. But now, it's not alone. Faint cries join the chorus, a symphony of sorrow from countless others. It dawns on me with sickening clarity. The house holds them all. Every soul ever trapped within these walls is here, forced to replay their final, desperate moments for eternity. I can feel their pain, their fear, seeping into the very air. I whisper to myself, my voice trembling. It's alive. Every sound, every shadow. The wind howls through the cracks in the old windows, not just a draft, but a messenger, carrying whispers and voices I can't quite understand, yet their intent feels sinister. As I reach the landing, a sudden, bone-deep chill freezes me in place. The floorboards beneath my feet shudder, groaning under a weight I cannot see. Something is here with me, and then I see it. At the top of the stairs, Where there was only a wall before, a door has appeared. It's a secret door, carved with arcane symbols that seem to squirm before my eyes. My heart pounds against my ribs. Every instinct screams at me to turn back, to run. But I know there's no escape that way. The house has revealed this path for a reason. Hesitantly, I push it open. The room inside is circular, unlike any other in the house. The walls are lined with mirrors of all shapes and sizes. But they don't just reflect me and the room. They reflect time itself. I see moments from centuries past playing out like silent films. Families laughing around a dinner table, only to vanish into thin air. Children playing with glee, their faces suddenly turning pale and vacant as they, too, disappear. And woven through these memories are dark, shadowy figures in old-fashioned coats, moving silently, orchestrating these events with a chilling purpose. A voice, ancient and cold, echoes in my mind, as if the house itself is speaking. This house preserves its history. It does not forget, and it punishes those who trespass. I step further into the room, and the air thickens, heavy and suffocating. Candles flicker wildly, not from a draft, but as if disturbed by unseen hands passing by. At the very center of the room stands a full-length mirror, its surface glowing with a faint, ethereal light at through's main. Primera proache at my feet, moving as if of their own accord. My reflection stares back, but it's wrong. It's me, but older, my face pale and gaunt, my eyes hollow, and filled with a despair I don't yet feel. Then, something shifts. A figure begins to emerge from within the mirror's depths, stepping out of the glass and into the room with me. He's tall, dressed in the formal attire of the 1800s, but his eyes are what terrify me most. They are black, empty voids, unyielding and ancient. His voice booms, echoing from the very walls, deep and resonant. "You have walked too far," he says, the sound vibrating through my bones. "Time is not yours to command." The floor trembles violently. The mirrors around the room flicker, and in their reflections, I see them hundreds of trapped souls, their faces contorted in silent screams, their eyes fixed on me. I stagger back, panic seizing me. "What do you want from me?" "Primera, está en memer." The figure raises a hand, and shadows leap from the mirrors, stretching like grasping tentacles, trying to pull me in. The air grows impossibly cold, my breath turning to a white mist before my eyes. Whispers surge from all directions, a chaotic torrent of voices, all urgent, all speaking at once. "The house is eternal," they hiss. "All who enter belong to its memory. Leave and join the past, or resist and be broken." I realize then that everything, the child's ghost, the shadowy figures, even my own distorted reflection are all part of this elaborate trap. They are warnings, clues, and deceptions. My eyes dart between the mirrors, searching for an answer, a way out. I notice the tall man in black, appearing in several reflections, always in the background, always orchestrating the van. He is the master of this place. As one candle flares, it illuminates another ghostly child, this one silent, simply pointing. I follow her gaze to a corner of the room, to a mirror that reflects something I can't see directly, a hidden passage leading down into the basement. I have to follow it. It's a terrifying choice, but staying here means becoming another silent, screaming face in the mirror. "I have to follow it," I whisper, "or I'll never leave this place alive." The moment I make the decision, the house reacts. The mirrors ripple like water, shadows stretch and contort, defying the laws of physics. From the hallway below, the piano plays a single, haunting note that hangs in the frigid air. The temperature drops even further, and I feel a powerful magnetic pull toward the central mirror, toward the waiting figure. I risk a glance at my reflection again, and for a terrifying split second, I see myself wearing clothes from the 1800s, my eyes wide with the same fear I see in the trapped souls. It's as if a version of me already exists inside this house, already lost. The narrator's voice fills my head again, a chilling confirmation of my fears. Time bends, past and present merge, every moment becomes a trap, and the house waits for those who fail to understand. I fight against the pull, trying to regain my footing, my control. The shadows lash out, the candles flared violently before dimming to a faint glow. In my hands, the diary and pages flutter wildly, as if caught in a gale, stopping on a new passage. The handwriting is different, older, more frantic. It reads, "The heart of the house holds a key. Speak to the shadows. listen to the echoes, or become one with the memory forever. This is it, my final chance. I have to understand what it means, or I'll become just another memory in this house of horrors. The passage to the basement waits, and I have no choice but to go down. The house is alive. It breathes with an icy breath that freezes the air around me. I clutch the diary, its leather covered cold against my skin, the only solid thing in this shifting nightmare. The walls seem to pulse, contracting and expanding like a monstrous lung, watching my every move. Whispers slither from the shadows, a constant, overlapping chorus of pleas and threats. I need to understand before it's too late. I have to know what this place wants from me. Stepping into the main hallway, the shadows stretch and twist, no longer bound by the laws of light. They writhe along the walls, elongating into grotesque, unnatural shapes. And then, the faint cries I'd heard before, the sound of a lost child, grow louder, sharper. They are joined by other voices, unseen and unheard until now. A symphony of suffering that echoes from the very bones of the house. This place is waking up, and I think I'm the one who disturbed its slumber. As I reach the parlor, the scene that was once frozen in time shatters. The figures, once static like ghostly statues, now move with an unnerving, aggressive energy. The woman who was arranging silverware lunges toward me, her face a mask of silent fury. Servants, carrying candles, drift forward, their eyes hollow voids of darkness, their flames casting, dancing, distorted shadows that leap and writhe. And from the deepest corner of the room, the tall man in black emerges, his form solidifying from the gloom. He glides toward me, closing the distance with terrifying speed. The air becomes impossibly cold, a biting, arctic chill that seeps into my bones. I feel invisible hands grabbing me, their phantom fingers clutching at my arms, my chest, trying to drag me down into the suffocating darkness that pools at my feet. No, I'm not yours. I scream, the words tearing from my throat. The tall man just tilts his head, a gesture of cold curiosity, and then a whisper, a chilling echo of my own voice, slithers into my mind. The house claims what it wants. My blood runs cold. I stumble back, my heart hammering against my ribs. The floorboards beneath me begin to tremble violently, shaking the entire room. The shadows are no longer just on the walls. They lash out like living tendrils, cracking like whips through the air. That's when he appears. The translucent boy, the one from the diary, materializes right beside me, his form shimmering and indistinct. "Run," he pleads, his voice thin and desperate. "Run before they take you like the others." His urgency is a jolt of adrenaline. I instinctively reach out, trying to grab his hand, but my fingers pass right through him, like smoke. He points a wavering finger toward the grand staircase, my only way out. But when I turn, my escape is gone. The shadows have converged, blocking the path, a solid wall of writhing darkness. I have to find another way," I gasp, my breath catching in my throat. The whispers are deafening now, a chaotic roar of overlapping voices screaming directly into my mind. The mirrors lining the hallway begin to ripple like disturbed water. In their distorted reflections, I see them, the trapped souls. Countless faces, their eyes wide with terror, their hands pressing against the glass from the other side, reaching for me, beckoning me to join them. This house isn't just haunted. It's a prison, and its walls are hungry. Suddenly, the great chandelier above me swings violently, back and forth, its crystals chiming a discordant, frantic tune. In the center of the parlor, the largest mirror begins to glow with an eerie, internal light. The tall man in black steps closer, his presence commanding the other spirits. All at once, the figures, the women, the men, even the children move in unison, a synchronized, spectral army closing in from every direction. I finally understand. The house isn't bound by normal rules. It controls time, space, and perception. It's reshaping its own corridors, sealing its exits, all to trap me inside its timeless torment. But then I see it. Hope. A flicker in the chaos. One of the mirrors, one that should be reflecting the wall behind me, instead shows something else. A door. A door that isn't physically there, standing in a hallway that doesn't exist in this version of the house. It's an echo, an escape route through the past. If I can reach that door, maybe I can understand what happened here. Maybe I can survive. With a surge of desperate energy, I lunge toward the mirror. The shadows fight back, lashing violently, trying to pull me away from my one chance. Invisible hands clutch at my legs, their grip like iron, dragging me back. Leave me alone, I roar, fighting with everything I have. Asif, inanswar. A sudden, powerful gust of wind blasts through the room, pushing the shadows back, just for a moment. It's the opening I need. I throw myself forward and slam my hand against the cold glass of the mirror. My reflection stares back, but it's not me. Not exactly. It's a version of me from another time, dressed in 1800s clothing, his eyes wide with the same terror I feel now. A warning of what I will become if I fail. The house does not forgive. It does not forget, and those who resist must face its wrath. I have to get through this door. I have to. The mirror before James ripples, no longer a solid surface, but a shimmering portal of liquid darkness. Shadows that once clung to the corners of the room now swirl around him, tightening their spectral grip, a physical pressure of unseen hands. Tay whispers, once faint and distant, have crescendoed into a chaotic storm, a voiciza, symphony of centuries, each note a pang of pain, a shiver of fear, a deep, unending longing. Desperate, overwhelmed, James slams his hand against the glass. It's ice cold, yet it pulses with a disturbing, living energy beneath his palm. Show me, he screams, his voice cracking with the strain. Show me what you want. In response, the glass flashes with a blinding, white light. The world around him dissolves and reforms in an instant. He's standing in the very same room, yet not. The air is thick with the smell of old wood and lamp smoke. Soft light from oil lamps casts a warm, flickering glow on the walls. From downstairs, the faint, ghostly echo of laughter drifts to a family dinner, full of warmth and life. But a cold dread settles in James's stomach. He knows this isn't real. It's a memory, a phantom playing out before him. He steps cautiously into the hallway, a spectator in a theater of the past. The shadows of long-gone figures move around him, translucent and unaware of his presence. Then, at the far end of the hall, a figure solidifies. It's the tall man in black, but this time, he's not a mere shadow. He is solid, real, his expression grave and impossibly ancient. You do not belong here, the man says, his voice calm, yet carrying the weight of ages. The house feeds on those who remember. A surge of anger cuts through James's fear. Then tell me how to stop it. The man studies him, his dark eyes seeming to peer into James's very soul. After a long, unnerving moment, he speaks again, his voice dropping to a quiet, conspiratorial tone. You cannot stop the house, he reveals, but you can give it what it wants, a memory, strong enough to replace the one it lost. As the man's words hang in the air, a profound understanding dawns on James. The house isn't evil, not in the way he'd imagined. It's a repository, a living archive that consumes emotions, guilt, love, whilst binding them into its very structure to keep them from fading. It's not malicious, it's just hungry. Hungry for remembrance. Just then, the translucent boy, the first spirit he'd seen, materializes beside him once more, his form flickering like a weak flame. It took my family, the boy whispers, his voice filled with a sorrow that transcends time, because we forgot what this place was. You can make it stop, if you remember for us. Overwhelmed by a wave of empathy, James kneels, his own tears blurring the ghostly image of the boy. I remember, he says softly, his voice thick with emotion. I remember all of you. At his words, the very air in the hallway begins to vibrate. The ghostly shadows freeze mid-motion. The cacophony of whispers falls silent, replaced by an expectant, listening hush. The tall man in black steps closer. The menace that once radiated from him has softened, replaced by a solemn acceptance. He places a hand on James's shoulder, a gesture not of threat, but of transference. The house will remember through you, he states. But once you give it your memory, you can never return. James looks around him, and the house begins to flicker, its reality unstable. Modern walls blend with candlelit wallpaper. Polished glass merges with rough-hewn stone. He's seeing centuries at once, feeling the countless lives lived within these walls, the laughter, the arguments, the quiet moments of sorrow trapped, all waiting for release. He understands the choice he has to make. Closing his eyes, then take it, he whispers to the house, to the spirits, to the very air around him. Take everything. A blinding surge of pure, white light erupts from the mirrors, from the walls, from the very floor. Every trapped soul that has ever haunted these halls appears one last time, their forms solid and clear. Their faces, once twisted in pain or confusion, are now peaceful. Their eyes are clear. They look at James, a silent chorus of gratitude, before dissolving into a soft, golden mist that drifts toward the light. The young boy offers a faint, final smile, his lips forming a silent thank you before he too fades away. The tall man in black simply bows his head in a gesture of respect, then turns and steps backward, consumed by the light. The mirrors, the source of so much torment, shatter without a sound, their fragments turning to dust before they even hit the floor. The immense energy releases too much, and James collapses, his strength utterly spent. The air grows still and quiet. And then, a final sound. The gentle creaking of old wood, not a sound of decay, but a soft, contented sigh, a long, final exhale. Sunlight, crisp and new, filters through the dusty, cracked windows of the old house. The Ibalina's decor is gone, replaced by the peeling paint and bare floors of a modern, abandoned home. The silence is absolute. A realtor's key turns in the lock, and the front door creaks open. It's been abandoned for years, she says cheerfully to the young couple standing behind her on the porch. No one ever stayed long. The couple steps inside, their footsteps echoing in the empty space. They look around, imagining furniture and futures. The woman, however, pauses her gaze, drawn to a large, ornate mirror, still hanging in the hall, miraculously intact. She squints, tilting her head. "Strange," she murmurs. "I thought I saw someone in there." For a single fleeting heartbeat, a reflection stares back at her that is not her own. On the grand staircase, a faint, smiling figure of a young man stands watching, a silent guardian in a house no longer hungry, because houses do not die. They only wait for someone to remember them again. Thank you so much for joining me on this chilling journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next tale.